Hi, I'm the Scrivener, and today I'm going to talk about December and what I'm going to read by the end of the year. This is a little nerve-wracking. I feel like it's October or maybe June, but there's snow outside, and I realize if I want to read books in 2023, I have to read them next month. And this is an issue because, family, holidays, all of those things. How am I going to read the 16 books on this list plus the other 20 that I had to be like, hey, Kira, you really can't read these books. You think you can, but you're gonna have even less time than you normally have. So I whittled it down to 16 books that I would really like to read by the end of the year. These are books that I'd either finished or I really thought would be favorites, authors that I really love and I haven't read their new books. So yes, I'm going to give these. This is a mix of fantasy, classics, and literary fiction and some other various things jumped in. I am going to talk briefly about the 3 books that I've already read. It's not that crazy. It's December 2nd and 2 of them are very short and one of them I had already read most of it in November and I just finished in the beginning of December. The first one was A Fatal Thing That Happened on the Way to the Forum, and this was a fantastic nonfiction book that is just very funny and very educational, looking at murder in the Roman Empire. I was hoping that it was going to go a little bit more into the later empire, when there's 4 emperors in a year and stuff, but it was very Julio, Claudio and his ancestors, etc. But it was still fun. I really liked the ways in which she looked at a variety of different people. The only kind of murder that was criminalized for most of the Roman Empire was patricide, other murdering of people in your family, which is crazy. And yeah, things like killing slaves, killing anyone who's common born, which is not at all criminalized at all, which is crazy. The other one that I read was Bartleby the Scrivener, which is fun. It's my name. I don't know why I never thought that I should read it. Obviously, Scrivener is not actually my name, it just means writer, and this one means clerk. It was fun. I'll talk more about it in the wrap-up. And then I also read the little book of Little Brontës, which was so sweet. I've been reading picture books a whole ton because it's been a little bit of a harder season for me, and I find picture books are just really wonderful. And this is about the Brontë sisters and their brother Bromwell, and it was really lovely. It is written by Sarah Leary, who is a Canadian author and children's author, and she also wrote the wonderful book A Ghost in the House, which was lovely. And yeah, it really highlights their childhood and how it wasn't dreary all the time, and their love of creativity and making these little books, and then it shows how to make the little books. It made my heart so happy. So I want to move on to the books that I have started and not finished, and the first one is The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood. I made some pretty good progress. I am here in the book. It is a very interesting book. It is one that I did not look up the description, and I feel like that is almost kind of how you want, so I don't want to give you a lot of descriptions. It is Margaret Atwood's first novel. She had published poetry beforehand, but this is her first novel. It is published in 1969, so it is a nice old book, and yet it feels very modern. She's a delicious writer. The way that she does metaphors and descriptions, I just feel inspired to write better by this. It is a book that highlights the changing of the 20th century. I would really recommend this for any fan of Margaret Atwood or of unhinged women. This is a very perfect novel for that. And I have no idea what's gonna happen. I just got to the halfway point and something changed utterly in style, and I literally gasped and then went back and I was like, what? What has happened? There's been a few moments of that, and it is a page turner and I'm really, really enjoying it. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell. I had read one of her short stories, The Old Nurse's Tale, earlier in the month of October, and it was so wonderful that I was like, I don't want to count this just as a separate book, so I decided to put a hold on the library and start this. So I'm really excited to start these Gothic Tales. I really love Elizabeth Gaskell as an author. I read Cranford, which was incredible. I read North and South in October, which was really lovely, and I'm really excited to continue on this era and the various different kind of books that she writes. I love short stories and I really love this. I'm currently reading an audiobook, The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, and this was marketed as Rebecca, as in Daphne du Maurier, gothic marriage, toxicness, and Roxane Shoxi is one of my favorite authors from way back. I really liked her books, the Aru Shah books, The Gilded Wolves. I've really enjoyed her as a writer and some of her short stories that have appeared in anthologies. I just really love the way that she weaves stories, and this one is very interesting. It's especially fascinating that the point of view is from the bridegroom. It literally says bridegroom, and there's this aspect of them talking about fairy tales and talking about fantasy, but we're not really sure if this is actually a magical world or a world in which they're just obsessed with fantasy. And that's very interesting. And now we've switched to another point of view that was unexpected, and we're getting another childhood, and it feels mid-century, way back in the 1900s, and then this seems more modern, and you're talking about electricity and stuff like that, and I love that kind of limbo of fantasy versus modernity and stuff. It's very fascinating. The next book that I really hope I'm going to finish is Kim Jiyoung, born 1982. This is a book that I started at the beginning of 2022, and I got 32 pages in, and it was really brilliant. It is a fiction novel set in South Korea and translated into English, and it is about women, and like it is kind of explaining the most common experience of women born in 1982. And this is the most common name of someone born in Korea in 1982. And it's so fascinating because it's talking about all of these things, and it is so wonderfully written. And I started it, and then I like got distracted by something else, and I never finished it. You know when you want to go back to a book but you feel like you need to be in the perfect mood because it's such a beautiful book? I've had that feeling, and I really want to set apart a day and finish this book because I know that it's going to be a favorite because it's so good. And it also has nonfiction sources, so when it's talking about like abuse, or it's talking about, you know, women not being able to actually like get education, it's all linked in the bottom. So it's a very controversial book that has also been banned in South Korea, and I really need to focus on it before the end of the year. Another holdover that I think is actually from 2021, which is embarrassing, but this is Creature by Amina Kane. I really love her book, and Delicacy is one of my favorite books. I really love this limbo of time and space and unnamed narrator and stuff like this, and this is a short story of herself that I started a long time ago and really liked it, and again got distracted and never finished it. But it is really fascinating. It's set in the city, and she's just like lying, and she's watching these things go by, and there's no descriptions, and it's haunting, and again that kind of, you know, unhinged woman kind of taupe. I really, really love it, and I really am fascinated by it. So this is a book that I would love to finish by the end of the year. Now, completely changing genre, we're going to go back into Victorian England and London, and we're going to talk about Can You Forgive Her by Anthony Trollope. Anthony Trollope is definitely going to be one of my favorite authors of the year. I have read 5 of his books and really enjoyed most of them. I really didn't like The Way We Live Now, which is so surprising because it's one of his favorites, but I really had such a good time with the Bartleby books. I read his first 2 books previously, and I read the last 4, and this is an interconnected series. It is not utterly the same characters, but there are minor characters that appear later on the Bartleby books, and these characters are the protagonists of this series. And I am so excited. This is an arranged marriage, which is so fun. And he's a little bit of an older man. His name is Pallister, and he wants to be a parliamentarian, and he marries this woman that will help him, you know, look successful in the eyes and stuff like that. And he imagines there's different discretions and stuff like that, and we're having conversations about this. I know that Anthony Trollope is a wonderful and amazing writer, and I'm really interested in reading more of his things. I hope to read like the whole series over 2024, but I would love to start in 2023. Another book that I'm really excited for is Please Do Not Touch the Exhibit by Jen Campbell, and I have had this for a few weeks, and I've told myself that I need to get a few projects done because I want to reward myself with this book. And you know that it has to be such a good book if you're like using it as like a reward system. So this is a poetry collection by Jen Campbell. She's a YouTuber here, and she's an author, and she talks about disability and IVF in this poetry, and I think it's just going to be so wonderful. It is a very thin book. I did not expect it to be this thin, but I'm so excited for this book. I have heard her read excerpts from it, and it sounds amazing. The next book I'm going to talk about, I know the least about, and this is Northwoods by Daniel Mason. This is a very acclaimed book of this year, and it is following this one house throughout many centuries. I think that it takes place way back, and then it carries from then all the way into the present day. And I think that that's really fascinating because I love the idea of this one story that only happens in this one house. Like, characters may come and go and have other parts of their lives followed, but we only track them in this one house, and we track the various people that come in and out of this house. And I think it's going to be really wonderful. I have it on audiobook, and I'm really excited for it. This is my newest book on my TBR because I was literally watching Greg from Supposedly Fun when I'm writing out my physical TBR, and this one he talked about it, and I was like, okay, I would really love to fit this in by the end of the year. And this is The Talk by Darren Bell, and it is a graphic novel. I love graphic novels, and he's talking about the talk as in someone explaining police brutality and racism to him, and his white mother had explained it to him when he was a young child, and he didn't believe them, and his father kind of didn't want to talk about it. So then when he got older, he really experienced the experience of being a black man in America, and then it ends with him talking to his sons and explaining what it means to be a black boy in America. And I think that that's going to be really fascinating. I love graphic novels, and I'm really excited for this. The next book is The Return of the Soldier by Rebecca West. This is a really short book. It is published in 1918 during World War I, which is so fascinating. Like, I love like war fiction and like anti-war fiction and stuff like that, and I'm really excited to read this book. And the fact that it came out before peace talks, before like November 11th, is like so shocking to me. This is about 3 women who are involved in the war, as well as one man who is shell-shocked. And I think that the depiction of PTSD before even the end of war will be so fascinating. And I'm really, really excited to read this like very small novel. The next one is by an absolutely favorite author, and this is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. And she has written 3 novels that I really, really love. This is her adult debut. It is a family saga following a family over several generations of a Dominican American family, and I think it's just going to be so wonderful. I really want to get to it by the end of the year because I want to shout out my girl. The next book is a book that I thought that I knew the premise of more than I did, and this is Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Kirsten McCullers. I thought that I knew this book, but apparently I didn't know as much because of the fact that I thought it followed a woman, but it doesn't. And this is about a young man named John Singer. He spends a lot of time in this cafe, and many people come and confess to him. I am a little worried now because it talks about how he is deaf and mute, and I am always a little suspicious of disability representation, but it is set in the Deep South. It talks about many things. It's known as Gothic books. I have not always enjoyed Southern Gothic things because of the racist overtones in it, and it also has a black character in it, so I am now worried about this book. But if you have read this, I would love to hear your thoughts, and yeah, I really want to like her as an author, so I'm really hoping that this goes well. Talking about hearts, I also have Foul Heart Huntsman, and this is by Chloe Gahn. She is a wonderful author who has wrote these Violet Delights, and this is the second book in her second series, which started with Foul Lady Fortune. And I love this. It's set in the 1930s in Shanghai. It really looks at the political system in that time, but also includes like magic to some degree. This follows 2 like 19-year-olds who are masquerading as a married couple in order to infiltrate a different business and have things. So I really loved the first one. I'm really excited for the second one. I love a good YA fantasy, and I really think that Chloe Gahn is like a master in that era. Another book that I'm so close to the end of that I have not finished, which is The Watsons by Jane Austen. I started this in Jane Austen July, and I got distracted. I have like 5 pages or less. I think I only have like 2 pages of this. And this is an unfinished novel by her that I really wanted to review, and I have a vlog in which I talk about many of my thoughts. So hopefully that vlog will be out by the end of December. I have many more books that I want to talk about, but I'm going to talk about 2 more books that I've started and not finished. And it is How Far You Have Come by Morgan Harper Nichols. I really love her. She is an incredible poet that really focuses on encouragement as poetry. So she writes it mostly in you and talks about like kind of affirmations and encouragements. I'll open up randomly. In the long stretches of wilderness without street lamps to guide you, your sight narrows, unreliable. There is nothing for miles. Your heart is spinning faster than the wheels treading the earth beneath you. But beyond the headlights, the moon still shines above you, and the earth is still steady, spinning on its axis, as she did yesterday and the day before and before that. Here you are, all alone, but more connected than you think. I really love this poetry, and as I said, I've been having a little bit of a harder time, so I felt that I just really needed to pick this up and read it. I read her previous book, and I follow her on Instagram and really love her encouragements there. So yes, I was really excited to start this. And then last but certainly not least, I have Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. This is the ugly cover that I will not be claiming. I will be claiming the pretty white cover, but this is about the basics of Christianity. I have read the first few chapters in here, but I feel like it's a good book to read physically, but I would rather read it on audiobook, so I'm going to finish it up on audiobook, even though I read probably the first 50 or so pages on physically. These are some of the books that I hope to read by the end of the year. I hope that you have a great time. Let me know what you hope to read by the end of the year, what you think your favorites of the year is, and I will see you throughout this month celebrating Christmassiness.